Разделям малко. Не.
Кой е така да помогнем? Аз ще чета български петия.
Окей.
Хочеш да кажа може?
We have 2 minutes. 1 minute.
Директора каза да почваме.
Okay. Good morning. Welcome to our morning session. Today we have 2 speakers in Bulgarian.
Да.
Росица Гичева and Marina Koleva.
Да. Добро утро. Нашето сутрешно заседание в панела, наречен иконография, започва с съобщението на Росица Гичева от Института за изследване на изкуствата. Впрочем, това беше интересна грешка. Тя започна някога така като докторант, но след това ни напусна и сега е в Нов български университет. Темата – Бручлянът, изкуството и религията на древните траки. Заповядайте.
Good morning to everybody.
I have made my presentation in English.
Okay.
So you will be, those of you who cannot understand Bulgarian will have the possibility to see one short resume of my text. Избрах да представя брашляна в изкуството и религията на древните траки като една несъмнена маргиналия, която според мен заслужава повече внимание. Изображенията на брашлян обикновено се разглеждат само като един мотив в растителната декорация в репертуара на античното изкуство. Анализът не се задълбочава повече от традиционната интерпретация, че брашлянът е атрибут на бог Дионис и неговите митични почитатели. Брашлянът е популярен елемент от растителната окраса на тракийски съдове, въоръжения, апликации и други. Известни са златни погребални венци във формата на брашлянови клонки. Въпреки популярността в репертуара на тракийското изкуство, изображенията на брашлян досега не са привличали специален изследователски интерес. Преди да представя конкретни примери от тракийското изкуство, ще разгледам антични писмени свидетелства, които представят интерпретацията на античните автори за ритуалната употреба на това растение. Те ще ми послужат за основа при разбирането на художествените репрезентации в религиозния контекст на тракийската култура. Ключови сведения дава Плутарх, който казва, че вакханките биват обземани от вакхически ентусиазъм, като дъвчат брашлянови листа. Плутарх описва как брашляна събужда дух на лудост, стимулира объркване и разтърстване, предизвиква пиянство без вино, както и удоволствие от тези, които са склонни към ентусиазмично вдъхновение. Същия автор говори още два пъти за въздействието на брашляна в контекст на пиене на вино. Несправедливо е да се твърди, че брашлянът има охлаждаща сила, която може да окротява горещината на виното. А напротив, брашлянът е по-скоро огнен и горещ, защото когато добавим плодовете му във виното, то става по-опияняващо, по-объркващо и разгорещяващо. И още едно сведение на Плутарх. Не е вярно казаното, че смесването на брашлян с вино предизвиква пиянство, защото това създава опиещите патос, страдание или удоволствие, а не пиянство. По-скоро вълнение, смут, уплаха, паника, безразсъдност, каквото предизвиква и блянът и още неща от този вид предизвиква брашлянът. И в трите сведения Плутарх описва психоактивното въздействие на брашляна, на листата и плодовете му, както при директна консумация, така и смесен с вино. Лаконични сведения за психоактивното въздействие на брашляна намираме и в медицински трактати. Допускам, че именно психоактивните свойства на растението са допринесли то да бъде асоциирано в Елада с божество като Дионис, както и вакхическите ритуали, за чието почитатели се знае, че изпадат в състояние на променено съзнание. Предполагам, че и в Тракия растението е сакрализирано именно поради тези му качества. Най-ранните писмени сведения за употреба на брашлян в древна Тракия са в разказите за Мароновото вино в Омировата Одисея. Тракийският жрец на Аполон Марон дарява ахейците с скъпи дарове, сред които и вино, което се е разреждало с вода в пропорция 1:20, което показва, че не би могло да бъде упойващо, ако няма някакви добавки, когато се разреди с 20 чаши вода, например. Предположението се подкрепя от сведения за подобни практики в последвалите епохи. Вината в античността са били подсилвани с билки, както за медицинска, така и за култова употреба, а също и за удоволствие по време на симпозиум. Най-често употребяваните психоактивни растения са брашлян, блян, мак, смирна, пелин и други. Въздействието на Мароновото вино е описано в разказа за ослепяването на Полифем. Циклопът заспива непробуден сън, след като е изпил 3 чаши от това вино. Намек за психоактивната билка, която е добавена в него, дава името на чашата, в която то е пито. Името е кисюбион, което произлиза от корена на името на брашляна кисос. Атеней изборява множество по-късни сведения, че наистина чашата кисюбион е била изработвана от брашляново дърво. Още едно сведение на Плутарх разказва за използването на брашлян в женските вакхически таинства в Македония и Тракия. Плутарх разказва за майката на Александър Велики Олимпиада. Всички жени по уния места, които от дълбока древност участват в таинствата на орфиците и оргиите на Дионис, носят прозвището плодонки или мималонки. Подобни на техните култове имат едонянките и тракийките от подножието на Хемос. Олимпиада била най-ревностната от всички тия в изстъпленията, празнувала оргиите съвсем по-варварски, носила по време на шествието големи питомни змии, които често се подавали от празничните кошници изпод брашляна, увивали се по жезлите във венците на жените и плашели мъжете. В съчинението си Естествена история Плиний споменава два пъти Тракия и траките при описанията си на видовете брашлян. Първото сведение е за името на един от видовете брашлян, който се нарича тракийски, а второто е изключително интересно, дори вълнуващо бих казала. Според Плиний, дори до ден днешен брашлянът украсява Дионисовите тирсове, шлемовете и щитовете, които тракийските племена използват в техните свещени церемонии. Наричам това сведение вълнуващо, защото археологическите находки доказват неговата достоверност. Много често намираме изображения на брашлян върху тракийски шлемове, наколенници и апликации за щитове, които са изработени от скъпоценен метал. Сведението на Плиний показва, че тези предмети не само са парадно въоръжение, но и са използвани в тракийски религиозни ритуали, свързани с Дионис. В контекста на тези писмени извори ще представя изобразителните сведения за използването на брашлян в Древна Тракия. В Древна Елада брашлянът се появява като свещено растение на Дионис в писмени изобразителни извори от 6 век преди Христа. В Тракия изображенията на брашлян не закъсняват много. Най-ранното, което ми е известно, е от 5 век преди Христа, в каменен релеф от фриз при вратата на гробницата от жаба могила Стрелче. Най-ранният за сега паметник свидетелства и за най-важните религиозно-ритуални контексти, в които се срещат изображенията на брашлян – погребалният и мистериалният. Голяма част от артефактите, украсени с брашлян, са именно от тракийски погребения. В гръцките митологични разкази за Дионис брашлянът се появява два пъти. Веднъж с този инструмент, това растение, Зевс спасява недоносения Дионис от изгарянето на мълнията, която убива майка му Семела. Втори път в Дионисов мит се разказва как с брашлян Дионис е слязал в Хадес и извел оттам майка си, с което я е обезсмъртил. Без съмнение, изображенията на брашлян в тракийските гробници и царски погребения следва да се свързва с вярата и ритуалите за обезсмъртяване. Тракийските гробници отдавна са интерпретирани като зали за мистериални посвещения. В много от тях е откривано леглото тип клине, което е използвано за пирове. Убедително се допуска, че мистериалните обреди, свързани с постигането на безсмъртие, са включвали пиенето на вино. Брашлянът е една от най-вероятните психоактивни добавки към мистериалното вино. Именно психоактивните добавки са осигурявали възможността посвещаващите да влязат в контакт с отвъдното чрез виденията, които тези растения предизвикват. Най-популярният ритуален контекст, в който се появява брашлян в Елада, е симпозиум, пиенето на вино. От сведения на античните автори е сигурно, че брашлянът е най-често използваната психоактивна добавка в него. Хиляди са гръцките съдове за пиене на вино, в чиято окраса присъства брашлян. В Тракия също има множество такива артефакти, както изработени от гръцки майстори, така и от тракийски. Брашлянова окраса има тритоните от Боровското съкровище, които са в момента на слайд. Едно котиле от рогозен, каничка от рогозен, канички от луковит и върбица. Брашлянови клонки се срещат в симпозиумни сцени, като тази в каничката Ритон от Борово, която имаме и в горния и в долния фриз ваханка и сатир с брашлян, две пируващи божества мъжки, държащи ритони с брашлянови венци. Разполагаме и с едно изображение на гръцкия Дионис с брашлянов венец върху сребърния кантарус от Дуванви. Виното, посилено с брашлян в Тракия, със сигурност е имало религиозна функция, вероятно в мистериалните ритуали за обезсмъртяване, но и нещо повече. Виното с брашлян се превръща и в религиозно-политически символ, тъй като се появява в монетите на тракийския цар Котис, на аверса на които често е изобразен скифос или кантарус с брашлянов лист, около които са изписани първите букви от името на владетеля. В тракийските погребения са намирани единични модели на брашлянови листа от злато, златни апликации във форма на брашлянови листа, венци от брашлянови клонки. Находките са от цялата територия на древна Тракия, от днешна България, Румъния, Северна Гърция и европейска Турция. Моделите на брашлянови листа, клонки и венци показват, че освен използването на реалното растение в ритуалите, брашляна се е превърнал и в религиозен знак атрибут, изработен от скъпоценен метал, а вероятно и в символ на политически контекст на царската идеология. Остана ми да представя най-интересния и специфичен за Тракия контекст, в който се появяват изображения на брашлян, парадното защитно въоръжение. За него имаме писмено свидетелство на Павзаний. Върху някои от апликации с изображения на фантастични животни се появяват брашлянови клонки и листа. Разбира се, не можем да бъдем сигурни къде са били апликирани, но една от възможностите е върху щитове. В сребърна фалера от Стара Загора, върху която е представена борбата на Херакъл с немейския лъв, две от животните, ограждащи сцената, държат в муцуните си брашлянови листа. Тук не знам, да, вижда се. Брашлянови клонки украсяват няколко от тракийските парадни шлемове. Сребърните шлемове с позлата от железни врата в Детройт, който виждате в момента, перето, аджигьол. Брашляновата клонка винаги е разположена в задната част на шлема или в долния фриз, или в горния. Брашляновите клонки са характерен белег за някои сребърни наколенници. В маломирово с латиница клонката опасва глезена, а в наколенника от Враца е началото на богинята, която е изобразена. Забележителното при тракийските наколенници, че брашлянът се свързва с женски персонажи, най-вероятно богиня. Брашлян се появява и в апликация от Киоара, в която е представена сцена, изображаваща две жени войни. Фонът е запълнен с множество брашлянови листа, а може би и плодове. В заключение ще кажа, че примерите от тракийското изкуство показват, че реалното растение брашлян се използва в много случаи в същия контекст, какъвто се използва и в древна Елада, а именно в симпозиум, като добавка към виното, като дъвчене на листа, отново за постигане на опияняващо въздействие, или като венец от брашлянова клонка. Реалното растение и неговите изображения се използват в религиозни ритуали, най-вероятно с мистериален характер, свързани с великата богиня Майка и нейния син, тракийския Дионис. Брашлянът е едно от психоактивните растения, използвани в тези ритуали, чрез които се постигат халюцинаторни или други преживявания, свързани с променено състояние на съзнанието, които са били интерпретирани като религиозни преживявания. Изглежда в Тракия брашлянът е по-скоро свързван с богиня, отколкото с Дионис, защото образите, с които можем сигурно да го свържем, са женски. За разлика от Елада, в Тракия брашлянът изглежда се свързва и с воински функции, може би с божество войн. Вероятно означава воинска функция на богинята Майка, например, известно е за тракийската богиня Пентида, че има някои от характеристиките на гръцката Атина. Апликацията от Киоара с жените войни, както и врачанския наколенник, който е принадлежал на млада тракийка, насочват и към друга възможна интерпретация, към идеята за въоръжената или воинстваща жена в Тракия. Тази реалност вероятно отразявана в елинските митове за амазонките в Тракия или в представите за въоръжените воинстващи жени в мита за убийството на Орфей. Вероятно, жената воин играе някаква роля в религиозните представи и практики на древните траки, по-специално в мистериалните ритуали, свързани с обезсмъртяването. С нея е свързана употребата на брашлян в тракийските ритуали. Без съмнение, брашлянът е свещено растение и за тракийския Дионис. Воинския контекст на изображенията доказва за пореден път, че тракийският Дионис има функцията и на Арес. Воинският контекст на брашляна в Тракия показва също, че е много вероятно тракийските ваканки, известни с името басариди, да са всъщност жени войни. Елинизиран вариант на тази представа намирам в разногласията в гръцките митове, дали жените убили Орфей са ваканки басариди или са просто въоръжени тракийки. Воинските аспекти на гръцкия Дионис открих, когато изследвах хипостазата на Дионис Бромиус. В дисертационния си труд предположих, че в нея прозират много черти на тракийския Дионис, една от които са и воинските функции на Бога. Ще завърша с прочутия червенофигурен колонен кратер от Гела, Сицилия, съхраняван в Берлин, върху който е представена сцената Орфей свири пред тракийски войни. И тук Орфей е увенчан с брашлянов венец, а не с лавров, както би следвало за един почитател на Аполлон.
Thank you very much for your interesting paper.
Thank you.
Now,
А сега имаме съобщението на Марина Колева от Института за изследване на изкуствата на тема на границата на империята.
Някой ме пусна презентацията даже. Благодаря ви. Добър ден. Така. Тук ви представям една рядка иконография, която се среща в римски скулптурни паметници от нашите земи. Става въпрос за вотивни релефи, на които е представен Херакъл и неговите противници при извършването на 12-те подвига. Обикновено при изобразяването на митове се подбира момент, който е напълно ясен за зрителя. Най-очевидният избор е кулминационният момент, този, който носи най-много заряд и естествено би показал най-ясно кои са участниците и коя е историята. Точно в този контекст обикновено подвизите на Херакъл са изобразени в кулминационния момент, в който той побеждава своя противник. Не такъв е случай обаче с тези два паметника, които ви показвам тук. Това са два вотивни релефа, по-добре запазения е от Мадара. Изображенията са разположени най-общо в две полета, като в горното е представен героят, който лежи върху лъвската кожа под дърво, около което се извива змия. На дървото е окачен лъка и колчана с стрелите. Той държи кливак, а в дясната ръка чаша, като сатири му наливат вино. Под легналия Херакъл, и това е вече интересното в тези изображения, са представени неговите победени вече противници. Виждате Лернейската хидра, след това Ериманския глиган, Киринейската кошута, стимфалските птици и немейския лъв, разбира се, на чиято кожа лежи Херакъл. На долния ред се вижда критския бик, конете на Диомет, бикове и амазонката Хипполита, вече където за съжаление е повреден паметник, амазонката Хипполита с дигнати нагоре ръце, в които държи двойна брада и амазонски щит. Фрагмент от твърде подобен релеф е намерен в село Городцвет, Разградско, този малкия, който недалече от Мадара се намира тази локация. Горната част на релефа е, както виждате, повредена и загубена, но се вижда част от изображението на Херакъл, възлегнал в същата поза. А под него се вижда част от неговите победени вече врагове. Виждат се стимфалските птици, вижда се Цербер и същата сцена с Хипполита, с амазонката, която тук е запазена по-добре и помага за възстановяването и на същата сцена в другия релеф. Така. Тези два паметника са доста необичайни, както вече споменах, заради представянето само на жертвите на подвизите. Макар и необичайните не са уникални, защото попадат в една малка група сред произведенията на римското изкуство, които изобразяват само победените в тези митове. Става дума за няколко мозайки. Тук виждате тази от Алжир, което виждате отново само победените в подвизите на Херакъл, а самия Херакъл е изобразен в горната част на мозайката, т.е. няма съмнение за интерпретацията. И върху един сребърен съд се среща подобна схема. Така, едва ли, ако се зададем въпрос защо се използват само части от сцените, всъщност от подвизите, едва ли е въпрос на недостатъчно място или на неумение, защото имаме един фрагментиран паметник, който все пак успява да ни покаже, че със същата иконография в горната част на възлегнал Херакъл, отдолу в тези два реда майсторът е успял да пресъздаде, да покаже подвизите в кулминационната им точка, в момента, в който Херакъл побеждава своите противници. За съжаление, този фрагмент той е изгубен сега, но и с неизвестно местонамиране. Но поради сходството с релефа от Мадъра, Богдан Филов си позволява да предположи, че тези два паметника са създадени в едно ателие в Северна България. Аз си мисля, че дори можем да разширим това предположение, като прибавим и предишния релеф, който ви показах от Городцвет, тъй като иконографията е доста сходна, особено в тая необичайната си част за представяне само на противниците с този в Мадъра. Те близо се намерят един до друг, така че би могло да бъде все пак, нали, така малко смело предположение, че са създадени в едно и също ателие. Сега, какво друго може да ни позволи да видим в тези паметници? Те могат да ни отведат в друга посока на разсъждение, и то е за как се копират сцените в римското изкуство. Тук си използвам един интересен случай с Хипполита. Вече ви споменах на няколко пъти. Ето това е изображението на Хипполита на релефа от Мадъра. Тук тя е запазена също. А това е просто за сравнение. Ви показвам един саркофаг, който също от българските земи, от Лъжене, Чавдарци, село Чавдарци, Ловешко, който показва цялата сцена. Значи тук имаме един много любопитен случай, в който, освен че е представена само победения враг на Херакъл, е представена и половин сцена от една популярна и често изработвана в предримската и в римската епоха сцена на двубоя с Херакъл с Хипполита. Тоест виждаме само половинка. Това е Хипполита. Малко необичайно изглежда, защото виждате, че язди кони, размахва оръжия, а всъщност няма враг, т.е. няма с кого да се бори. Но това пък ни позволява да си помислим за копирането на тези сцени. Предполага се наличието на свитъци с модели, които се използват за изработване на римски копия на гръцки оригинали. Точно такива свитъци с модели вероятно се ползват и при направата на саркофази, при украста на саркофази, за да се улесни повторяемостта на мотивите. Това обяснява факта, че сходни мотиви се срещат върху мозайки, стенописи и скулптурни паметници. Вероятно тези свитъци са съдържали рисунки на сцени и отделни фигури, освен това скали за мерене на пропорциите, а скулпторите са запознати с репертуара на фигурите и ги комбинират в различни сцени, като ги изменят леко съобразно мотива. И аз мисля, че тук имаме точно възможност да изследваме нещо такова. Копиране на половин сцена в нашия паметник. Тук ви показвам само за сравнение още една подобна цяла вече сцена, в която участва и Херакъл с Хипполита, която вече е победена. И така имаме възможности, според мен, да направим и тези наблюдения за това как се използват паметниците, как се създават паметниците и как се използват тези предполагаеми модели. И накрая, тъй като макар и малко паметници, те пък ни дават много информация, затова имаме и малко информация за това кой ги е използвал тия паметници, кой ги е разпознавал, кой ги е ползвал и кой ги е в крайна сметка посветил на Херкулес, на Херакъл. И двата паметника имат запазени, в един случай частично, латински надписи. В първия случай при Мадъра има само посвещение на Херкулес Инвиктус, като тук трябва да отбележа, че епитета Инвиктус е много често срещан сред епитетите на Херакъл и всъщност той води към не само в Мизия, откъдето са паметниците, но и в цялата империя. Той е свързан предимно с военния аспект на култа, посвещенията на лица с римски романизирани имена. Също към връзка с армията води втория надпис, който споменава, че посветителя корникулари, което е длъжност, която е свързана с провинциалната управа и с войската. Така че ние имаме два надписа на латински, които сочат към влияние от военна среда във вътрешността. И така стигаме до границата. Тези два надписа ни позволяват да помислим за това как романизацията идва от границата, от лимеса, във вътрешността. Значи на границата, разбира се, са разположени войските, там е класическата римска култура. Постепенно тя навлиза в тракийските земи, чрез военните и чрез градовете, разбира се, но в случая военните са по-важни за нашите паметници, и влиза в една среда тракийска. Сега ние не можем да кажем дали тези посветители са с тракийски произход или не, защото няма данни, но все пак можем да видим пътя на романизацията от границата във вътрешността. Това е. Благодаря ви.
Thank you very much. And our third speaker is Nikos Chausidis. He comes from University of Skopje, and the title of his presentation is Pre-Christian Paradigms of Some Motifs from Byzantine Painting from the Territory of the Republic of Macedonia.
Although most contemporary researchers of the Byzantine church painting agree that numerous of its elements have been taken from the previous cultures and their religions, detailed research on these paradigms are still rare and insufficiently depend. The purpose of this investigation is to notify and research several such elements from the territory of Republic of Macedonia. Our first example is the famous scene of the Lamentation of Christ from Saint Panteleimon in Eresi. Here Christ and the Mother of God are depicted in very unusual constellation. Christ is literally light in the lap of Mary. In fact, she embraces his body with her expanded thighs, while her curved legs, covered with cloak, form a rhombus. An image with a similar solution is present in Marcos Monastery in the scene Massacre of the Innocents. This time it is Rachel displayed in kneeling in the ground, spreading her knees in the orange poster, surrounded by the bodies of the killed children. The connection of two scenes with death suggests that in both cases this pose was not motivated solely by some artistic, but also by semiotic reasons. The goal was consisted on the following. Through the widespread legs on both women, although in both cases covered with a skirt to suggest the childbirth position, and through it the resurrection of the tragically deceased characters. The same pose is a regular feature of another character with the eminent status of a woman in labor. We are talking about the figure of Gea in the composition of the Last Judgment. This time it is placed in a very archaic cosmological constellation that can be followed throughout numerous examples in ancient and prehistoric pagan tradition. The figure is shown as squatting on the hybrid mythical creature in the form of a dragon with heads and at both ends of the body, holding the heavenly cover in its hands. The human heads depicted in the mouth of the dragon suggest the two functions of the goddess. As a mistress of death, represented through the dragon's head, which is swallowing, and the mistress of birth through the other, which is spewing. An interesting parallel to this detail can be found in the non-Italian situate from the middle of the first millennium BC. In pre-Christian cultures, the birth as a function of women or goddesses was displayed explicitly at the moment when the newborn emerged from their body, shown in a childbirth position. Such images, although rarely, are also present in Byzantine culture, but outside the temple. Throughout history, various schematic representations have emerged in which the birth-giving poster acquires the status of a symbol and a sign that signify fertility, birth, life, or resurrection. It even gets the character of ideogram with the same meaning. The great symbolic power of these images conditioned their representation in the Christian, i.e. the Byzantine temple, whereby, due to the known taboos, they were maximally covered. Because of this, the widespread legs of the female figure, shown here, are regularly covered with a skirt or some similar clothing, so that the mentioned pose is evocated only on the level of the contrary. In non-Christian images, as in Rachel's case, the childbirth position is almost regularly combined with the hands raised and spread in the orange poster. On an archetypal level, this pose has the same meaning as the widespread legs because of two reasons: due to the additional emphasis of the birth position, or as indication of the openings of the female character, perhaps in terms of receiving the above or the sky of the component that will condition the conceiving and birth. But the rhombing silhouette of the legs does not have to be necessarily a consequence only of the hiding. Numerous prehistoric and ancient examples show that the rhombus regularly accompanied female figures, most often shown on the abdomen as a symbol of fertility. This practice has survived in Slavic and Balkan folklore, where the geometric shape is represented at the same position of the body. It is also included in Christianity, and not only as an empty ornament. Its high frequency and archetypal significance are due to the genesis of the rhombus, primarily as geometricized image of the open vulva. The four-sidedness of this symbol is conditioned by its cosmological significance as a symbol of the quadrilaterality of the earthy plate, and in relation to the vulva as a symbol of the creative functions of the earth. For these reasons, the goddess Mother Earth was shown as an anthropomorphized rhombus, or a figure of a woman whose body is geometrized in the form of rhombus. Such images are present in the form of sacrificial altars from pagan sanctuaries, in the ornamentation of vessels, and in the cosmological iconography of early medieval jewelry. There are also images in which the human figure, often represented with expanded or spread legs, is combined with the representation of a rhombus or a leaf motif. It's most often shown under the legs or between them as a sign of the female gender of figure or a symbol of fertility. There are also examples where, analogous to the image of Nerezi and Marcos Monastery, the rhombus is formed from the very legs of the figure, which are widespread at the knees and connected at the feet. The most numerous examples are among the Iron Age bronzes of Luristan, in whose multi-facet iconography several variants of such figure can be recognized, with female, male, and androgynous marks, and even as a three-headed zoanthropomorphic characters. Cultic wood figurines from the folklore of the people of Gabon are the best indicator of the archetypal character of these pictures, created in various cultures across the planet, independently of each other. In Marcos Monastery, we also see the male variant of this figure with spreaded legs that this time are not covered. It's about a pair of characters painted on the capitals that hold the dome. It's very indicative that they are turned to the altar and almost invisible to believers. In both cases, we are talking about the zoanthropomorphic characters, of which one has more pronounced monkey feature, while the other is more anthropomorphic and with an erect phallus. According to Mirkovic, these daimonic characters are present here to obstruct the symbolic lifting of the church roof and thus the ascension to the sky of the Eucharistic sacrifice and the prayer of the faithful. We point to a few Christian paradigms for these characters that overlap with them not only on a compositional but also on a semiotic level. It's about the representation of ancient characters with chtonic and daimonic predicate, attributed as Silenus, Pan, Satyr, and Bes. Of particular interest is an example from Afghanistan that displays Atlas, which fully matched the proposed interpretation, i.e. the location of this figure on the pillars that hold the dome. Starting from the functions of the holders of the dome or heaven, we can also understand them as male equivalents of Gea, which also holds the celestial vault. The following example is located on the Cathedral Church of St. Sophia in Ohrid, which was built and painted in various phases from the early Christian to the Ottoman period. During the separation of the fresco layers with the Holy Mother of God from the wall of the altar, a similar earlier composition was discovered in which she is depicted seated on a throne holding a mandorla with the infant Christ in her arms. This composition belonged to the first layer of the fresco painting from the 11th century, and it remains unclear why, despite the fact that it was not damaged, it was nevertheless repainted. The reason were mainly sought in some features of Christ's figure. Our assumptions are based on certain of the record's remarks, according to which the Holy Mother of God had been depicted with a beard and moustache. Through the next few slides, I will try to convince you of the high degree of probability of this said statement. This is a digital retouch of the damages of the fresco that were made intentionally to better fix the new layer of plaster with the new image of the Virgin. In our already published analysis, we propose several possible justifications for the presence of this unusual image of the Ohrid Cathedral. According to the first, its ideological creator is the Ohrid Archbishop Leo, the creator of the iconographic program of the cathedral from the 11th century. Our assumption is that he may have chosen this depiction for two reasons. The features of the Holy Mother of God are shown with male attributes in order to suggest that this is not only the Holy Mother of God, since the presence of the Logos in her leads to her merging with the face of God. This concept could have been hindrance to the identification of Saint Sophia with the Holy Mother of God, probably Leo's original objective. However, he may have used this image also as a symbol of the divine embodiment of matter, which derivates from the principle of incarnation of Son of God in the Holy Mother of God. Thus, Leo would have been able to debate with iconoclasts and Bogomils who did not believe in this dogma, and consequently in the holiness of temples and icons. However, it appears that 2 centuries later, this fresco had acquired new meaning which were close to heresy than to Orthodox beliefs. The heretics appropriate the Holy Mother of God's hermaphroditic features as an argument which would support their dogma according to which Christ was not incarnated in the Holy Mother of God. He was incarnated in a divine creature with the body of a woman and angelic sexually ambivalent face. In such circumstance, one of the archbishops of Ohrid, probably Demetrius Komatianus, who was also a learned man, consistent in his actions, decided to repaint this fresco with analogous but more neutral image. And appropriate pre-Christian paradigms can be found for this unusual image as well. We are talking about several goddesses, primarily from the Middle East, Asia Minor, but also from Balkans, which in certain situations were thought to have a beard. This issue was the subject of deepened scientific papers in which the written sources dealing with this problem are analyzed in details. In the cultures of Mesopotamia, these are the cuneiform inscriptions which the goddess Ishtar or the planet Dilbat, EI Venus, are described as having beard. Several of the ancient authors mention the androgynous bearded Venus of Cyprus called Aphroditus, to which men offered sacrifice dressed in women's clothing, while women dressed in masculine clothes. According to Herodotus, they were pedestrians dwelling inland above Halicarnassus. When any misfortune was approaching them or their neighbors, the priestess of Athena grew a long beard. This had happened to them thrice. The oldest visual paradigms of the bearded female mythical character can be found on the already mentioned bronzes from Luristan. In some of them, one can recognize the myth of the hermaphroditic god Zurvan, who gives birth to his 2 sons, Ormas and Athima. In the end, we pay attention to the male head from the plinth of the Church of Holy Virgin Eleusa in Prespa from the 15th century, depicted with moustache and animal hairs, from whose mouth and apex eels and some vegetative motifs come out. Similar representations are present on the relief motifs of church stone plastic, as is the example of Studenica, and especially the ornamentation of Christian illuminated manuscripts. The original paradigms of this picture can be found on the early medieval jewelry, such as the shown-belled buckles. The basis of this mythical image is the representation of the mythical figure, exponent of the lower zone of the universe, i.e. the earth, groundwater, and underground. Because of the male gender, his productive functions, or the creation of plants, animals, and water, could not be represented through the act of birth-giving, like the female counterpart. Therefore, their appearance in nature has been linked to the act in which this character spoils them from his mouth, which implies that he had swallowed them before. The presence of eels in the representation of the character from Nivici, which really exists in this region, as well as the location of the church in a cave along the shores of Prespa Lake, suggests that it is a mythical figure that was present in the local folklore at the time, probably as some kind of water demon or a memory of an old chthonic god who resides in the depths of the lake as its master. The recently published motif of the anthropomorphized mountain from the church of Urbinovo, located on the opposite shore of Prespa Lake, is an indicator of the presence in this region of many other unusual examples analogous to the ones shown here. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Nikos, for your very rich, illustrated and provocative paper. And our last speaker before coffee break is Rosa D'Amico from Rome. And the title of her presentation and paper is Les Fresques de Montevollo, un cycle émergé de la montagne bolognaise.
Merci beaucoup. Le massif de Montevollo s'élève avec ses deux pics dans la péninsule bolognaise, au passage entre l'Émilie et la Toscane. La présence humaine en ce lieu est témoignée en époque pré-chrétienne. La présence humaine en ce lieu est témoignée en époque pré-chrétienne par la découverte des matériaux surtout étrusques et par les anciens toponymes attribués au site. Entre la fin du VIe et le début du VIIe siècle, quand les Longobards, après la conquête de la Toscane, avaient repoussé les Byzantins au-delà des montagnes, ce territoire a constitué la frontière entre la Roumanie ravennate byzantine et la Longobardie. L'impact entre le Xe et l'XIe siècle a été fondé en ce lieu une église dédiée à la Vierge, reconstruite en 1211 selon l'inscription originale conservée dans la lunette de l'actuel portail. L'impact de Montevollo s'est agrandi après la 5e croisade, qui a eu comme théâtre l'Égypte et à laquelle a pris part un certain nombre de Bolonaises. Leur relation avec cette région a probablement influencé le processus idéal qui a mené à reconnaître l'affinité symbolique entre les deux pics de Montevollo et ceux de la montagne sacrée pour excellence, les monts Horeb dans les massifs du Sinaï, où, à l'époque des Justiniens, a été fondé un monastère fortifié. Entre le 8e et le 9e siècle, son importance s'est développée par l'influx de la légende par laquelle, après les martyrs, aurait été transporté par les anges au sommet du mont les corps de Sainte Catherine d'Alexandrie, dont le culte, déjà attesté dans le 7e siècle, a été bientôt accepté dans la liturgie byzantine et plus tard dans les pays latins. La tradition par laquelle cette précieuse relique, retrouvée dans une grotte, aurait été transférée par les moines dans la basilique de Justinien, a transformé ce complexe en un lieu dédié particulièrement à son culte. Le XIIIe siècle a été très important pour le culte de Montovolo. Le parallélisme symbolique entre Montovolo et le Mont Oreb a été souligné en une période voisine au retour des croisés avec la fondation au-dessus de Sainte-Marie d'une petite église dédiée proprement à Sainte Catherine, dont le rôle a été renouvelé au XVe siècle, surtout après la conquête ottomane de Constantinople et l'occupation subséquente des Balkans. À cette époque, Bologne était une des pierres angulaires des croisements culturels, politiques et religieux européens. Entre 1450 et 1477, la légation papale de Bologne a été gouvernée par le cardinal Bessarion, le plus grand médiateur du temps entre l'Est et l'Ouest, plus des autres impliqués dans l'idée des croisades pour la reconquête des lieux perdus, et par son successeur, Angelo Capranica, qui a continué à promouvoir l'intervention anti-ottomane. Ils ont trouvé un soutien par l'humaniste siennois né à Silvio Piccolomini, élu pape en 1458 sous le nom de Pius II. Tous deux ont participé au congrès de Mantoue, promu par le pontife en 1459 pour décider les méthodes d'intervention contre les Turcs, et quand en 1474, après la chute de la Bosnie, le pape avait voulu lui-même conduire la croisade, Capranica l'avait suivi. Bien que la mort du pape ait frustré les efforts entrepris jusqu'alors, l'idée de la reconquête de Constantinople, jamais abandonnée, a été soutenue jusqu'à la mort par Bessarion lui-même. Ces événements ont pu inspirer les plus profondes significations du cycle de fresques réalisées entre les 6e et les 7e décennies du XVe siècle dans l'oratoire de Sainte Catherine, où, pareil, dans la paroi absidale et dans les lunettes aux côtés de l'autel, aujourd'hui détachées, une des versions plus complètes de la légende de la Sainte d'Alexandrie, basée sur les textes cités, très connus à l'époque. Dans la lunette qui se trouvait originairement dans la partie méridionale de l'église, en outre, sont figurées des scènes de la conversion. Dans la première, Catherine reçoit de l'ermite son maître dans la foi, l'icône avec les figures de la Vierge et de l'enfant, dont dans l'autre, elle attend le baptême en acte d'humilité. Dans la lunette septentrionale, la même position est attribuée à la dispute avec les philosophes païens, qui discutent entre eux, tandis que Catherine, en présence de l'empereur et d'un conseiller, proclame sa foi. C'est très intéressant le mimétisme actif de mère. Dans les fresques qui ont occupé la lunette méridionale, Catherine arrive avec Toye Catherine avec Evo, Toye Ovo, Catherine avec les docteurs de l'Église, et Toye dans la lunette méridionale. Dans les fresques, Catherine arrive avec sa suite au palais impérial et rencontre l'empereur. Dans la scène voisine, tandis qu'un ange console la sainte en prison après son refus de renoncer à sa foi, l'impératrice, qui se convertira après le dialogue avec Catherine, s'approche à l'édifice où elle est détenue. Dans la lunette de la paroisse septentrionale, l'empereur, flanqué du conseiller, assiste à la torture de la sainte avec la roue, interrompue par l'intervention de l'ange et la punition des persécuteurs. L'épée avec laquelle le messager céleste brise la roue dialogue avec celle du bourreau qui, dans la scène suivante, décapite la sainte. Les personnages en costume militaire au centre fait vraisemblablement allusion aux soldats martyrs convertis par Catherine, en même temps aux chevaliers qui ont suivi aux modernes martyrs, les défenseurs des villes chrétiennes d'Orient et les héros qui vont partir pour la nouvelle croisade. Le relief attribué à la scène suivante, le transport du corps de la Sainte sur la Sinaï, rarement présent dans les cycles italiens, remarque le parallèle entre Montovolo, la montagne sacrée du Sinaï, et les monts byzantins. Dans la paroi absidale s'identifie encore, même s'il manque la figure de la Vierge avec l'enfant qui a dû occuper le centre de la composition, l'épisode final de la conversion par lequel Jésus accepte de prendre Catherine comme épouse mystique. La scène couronnée est dépeinte à la droite de l'actuelle fenêtre, dont de l'autre côté apparaît un ange musicien. La scène se relie symboliquement à la crucifixion dépeinte au-dessus sur la même paroi qui devient en présence ses côtés des anges agenouillés, porteurs des torches, une célébration liturgique dédiée au culte pour la croix, répandue à Montovolo. Au-dessus, c'est le buste à demi-profil de l'archange Gabriel, de la Vierge de l'Annonciation entre médaillons. Les voûtes croisées qui couvrent les deux travées sont comme les parois revêtues de peinture, encore in situ. Vers le portail principal sont dépeints les pères de l'église et au-dessus de l'autel, 3 des évangélistes et le Père éternel dans l'arbre de bénir. À la base de l'arc qui sépare les deux travées, paraît à gauche un squelette qui fait allusion aux réflexions sur la mort, memento mori, et à droite un chevalier armé. Sa présence va symboliser la valeur du martyr attribué à la mort affrontée en bataille pour défendre la foi et les lieux de la christianité. Ces fresques de valeur symbolique relient les histoires de Sainte Catherine avec les figurations de la 10e travée, où autour du portail principal et à l'intérieur des lunettes latérales apparaît une version particulière du jugement dernier. Le portail divise en deux la figuration principale. C'est possible qu'au sommet, les peintres et les promoteurs du cycle aient voulu représenter la main de Dieu comme symbole de la participation divine à l'évangile. À droite, les anges, sonnant des trompettes, appellent les élus qui sont venus du tombeau, tandis qu'au-dessus, à l'intérieur d'une caverne, un personnage laissé habillé comme un pèlerin peut représenter le prophète Élie, qui, selon la tradition biblique, n'est jamais mort. Son culte lié au Sinaï, il s'apprête à pu assumer le sang d'un hommage au cardinal Bessarion, qui a été en Orient moine basilien. Dans la lunette voisine, la composition de Dieu au paradis évoque les fresques réalisées à Bologne pendant la première décennie du XVe siècle par Giovanni da Modena dans la chapelle Bolognini de la basilique de Saint-Pétrone. En outre, apparaît le couronnement de la Vierge. Le couronnement de la Vierge entouré par les hiérarchies célestes distribuées en 3 niveaux. Au centre, Saint-Michel Archange, dont le culte était présent à Montovolo du Moyen-Âge, tue les démons et tac. Autour de lui sont des anges musiciens et nombreuses figures assises d'apôtres, prophètes et tacodas. À la gauche de la porte principale, sous les anges qui repoussent les pécheurs, se reconnaît au-delà des dommages un grand léviathan représenté comme dragon qui traduit l'image du fleuve du feu. La présence du monstre prépare le passage à la vision de l'enfer dépeint dans les lunettes voisines qui traduit l'énergie dramatique du prototype de Saint Pétrone qui fait penser au poème de Dante en un langage très expressif discipline d'esprit narratif. Malgré l'importance du cycle, la successive marginalisation de ces territoires a déterminé le silence presque total des spécialistes à l'égard de ces valeurs. Seulement vers la fin du XIXe siècle, au temps qui a vu se répandre dans les milieux culturels occidentaux l'intérêt pour le Moyen-Âge, Montoro, ses antiques légendes et ses monuments sont devenus objets de renouvelés désirs de renaissance. De toute façon, dans l'inconnu peintre qui a réalisé les peintures peut se reconnaître un maître bien cultivé. Son œuvre est riche de suggestions qui révèlent la présence de contacts avec les influx culturels de diverses provenances qui seulement en petite partie sont liés à la culture picturale bolognaise de cette époque. Les diverses suggestions stylistiques qui peuvent se reconnaître en ces fresques, les majeurs témoignages parvenus de peintures murales dans la péninsule bolognaise en font une intéressante expression de la circulation culturelle qui a caractérisé l'art du XVe siècle, en témoignant une phase de l'échange entre la culture padane et celle de l'Italie centrale qui a créé, comme très souvent, tout se vérifie dans les territoires de passage entre diverses réalités, un langage stylistique et iconographique très original.
Merci beaucoup. Merci beaucoup pour l'attention.
Merci.
Merci.
Merci. And now we have a coffee break or discussion.
Short discussion.
Discussion.
A break. 15 minutes.
No discussion.
Un moment.
Do you have a question?
The discussions no. The discussions.
Discussion is now. Sudden.
Да, действително. Аз не бях казала да се училата. Coffee break.
I think it's better to have now.
И аз така мисля, но...
Yeah. I think it's better to have now. Welcome again to our session. We start this part with the presentation of Alexandra Kurčeković, and the title of her presentation is The Three-Handed Holy Trinity Icons from Croatia on the Margins of Post-Byzantine Popular Piety.
Thank you, my dear colleagues. I'm very glad to be here in Sofia for the second time for this eminent conference. Let me start my today's presentation with a quote. The three icons of this other so-called angelic type I have not seen anywhere else, neither with us nor in the West. According to the present knowledge of our iconography, those three icons of the beardless deity should represent the youngest examples of the angelic type in Serbian art. This statement was made by Radoslav Grujić, a renowned Serbian theologian and historian, in 1955, when he published his study about the Holy Trinity, three-headed Holy Trinity in Serbian medieval and early modern art. The three icons in case were painted in 1704 and 1705 by Kozma Damjanović and donated to the churches in three neighboring North Croatian villages, Povelić, Gornje Sredice and Široko Selo. All three icons feature a specific non-canonical image of the Holy Trinity. The figures seated on the throne and with three identical heads on three separate necks, crowned and with a circular halo. The aim of today's presentation will be to shed some fresh light upon the one-off occurrence of these icons in a specific geographical and temporal, i.e. historical frame. All direct evidence for the proposed goal come from inscriptions preserved on the three icons themselves or on the three royal doors executed by the same painter for the same three churches. Grujić provided we can see here the icons themselves and the two of the preserved royal doors in Museum of Serbian Orthodox Church in Belgrade by the same painter. Radoslav Grujić provided the first transcriptions of the inscriptions on the icons and the royal doors, and as such they were published in 1925 for the first time. Unfortunately, the inscriptions are much more damaged today, and their absolute verification cannot be achieved. This is the inscription from the icon of the 1704, and on the lower part, the white bordered is a flipped inscription, so the year can be read and can be visible. The painter Kozma Damjanović was the donor of the first two icons. He painted them, as the inscriptions say, for the sake of his own health and salvation of his soul. The third icon, the one with the specific and the presentation of the three-headed Trinity does not bear the dedicatory inscription, just the designation inscription. According to the data provided by the inscriptions on this is the inscription from the other icon and the inscriptions from the royal doors. According to the information from the royal doors and inscriptions on them, they were executed with the effort and accomplishment of Presbyter Kir Marko Milaković during the time of Bishop of Retanja Gavrilo Turčinović. It is well known that official Christian theology never really accepted depictions of the Trinity as one body with three heads. The image, when referred to by theologians or ecclesiastical regulation, was disapproved as monstrous and erroneous. From the 15th century onwards, we can mention several notable condemnations, such as the Saint Antoninus of Florence, Pope Urban VIII and Benedict XIV, and the famous Stoglav Sabor elaboration in the 16th century about the rightful way of depicting the Holy Trinity, and of course, the famous reference to Rublev's depictions of the Old Testament Trinity as the right one. The very fact that the images were quite, not quite, but unanimously disapproved of by church authorities meant that it was not elaborated nor in any way regulated by the church, and that opened up a path to a wide range of interpretation during the Middle Ages and later both East and West. These types of images fall roughly into, as Gruitch ascertained, into two groups determined by the way in which the three guises are depicted and subsequently understood in theological terms. Depictions of the famous Vultus Trifrons, more popular in the West, showed that the Trinity as three-headed or three-faced Christ. Actually, there are some examples I here chose. They are only examples, and those depictions, more prominent and popular in the West, had also an influence in the East, especially in the post-Byzantine era. This is the famous example by the painter Onufri in the Shelton. And Onufri was denoted by colleague Dorina Arapi from Tirana as the introducer of this type to the Balkan region, followed and developed by successive painters until the 19th century. Here we have, thanks to my colleague Costa Iacomis, I have the example from Ardenica Monastery Iconostasis from the 18th century. The other group encompasses all the variants where the triune God is shown as one body with three youthful or angelic heads, which associate them with the depictions of the Old Testament Trinity, so-called, and the episode of the Hospitality of Abraham. Maybe the most famous Western example is this illumination from the St. John's Psalter, now kept in Cambridge in the late and made in the late 13th century. Here the Trinity is depicted enthroned and directly venerated by the figure by Abraham, and the text, accompanying text with this image says that God appeared to Abraham in figura Trinitatis. In the late Byzantine and post-Byzantine time in the Balkans, one finds three-headed angelic entities depicted in various iconographical schemes. The dream of Nabucodonosor, painted in the narthex of Peribleptos church in Ohrid, shows the female personification with wings and three heads touching the ground of the sleeping king. It's basically a visual amalgam of the ideas of the Trinity and the wisdom of God. However, it has been suggested for this particular example by Dragan Vojvodic that this figure here cannot yet be understood as angelic apparition. Nor do some later examples, as Vojvodic states, in Agios Panurius in Valsamonera and other examples. This fresco from Hilandari Monastery, which shows the famous episode Wisdom has built her house, shows the adaptability of this type of image. It is designated, I must read, Itris hypostatos monas, the figure itself. The extrication and more pronounced hieratic organization of this iconographical type can be traced back to Matejce Monastery example. It is now very damaged, but I'm here showing the old black and white reproduction where this figure can be much more better discerned. The post-Byzantine Balkan region subsequently produced a variety of similar images with different iconographical accents and details added to the basic scheme, as witnessed here by Church in Svetisvas in Štip, another example by Onufrian Holy Trinity, the Holy Trinity in Zrza Monastery, one example from Temska Monastery from the 16th century, and one quite a late one from the church of in Mostaci, a small village near Trebinje in Bosnia in Herzegovina. As far as the Matejce, almost a template or a prototype is concerned, it can be traced, its influences could be traced very, very late up to the end of the 18th, beginning of the 19th century, as this diptychon by Alexei Lazovic from Studenica Treasury Monastery proves. And there's one also almost the same in Dečani Monastery Treasury from the beginning of the 19th century. Well, what I can say about the three icons in case with certainty is that the painting activity of painter Kozma Damjanovic, and we know of only those of his works, three icons of Holy Trinity and those three royal doors painted for the same churches. His painting activity happened on the historical backdrop of, at that time, almost a century-long battle for ecclesiastical jurisdiction over the Orthodox population in northern Croatia. The Greek Catholic bishopric of Marcha was officially established in 1611 by the Pope Paul V, who confirmed Bishop Simeon Vretanja in Hungary, Croatia, Slavonia, and Žumberk. Serbian historiography since the 19th century claimed that the bishopric was actually originally Orthodox because the Bishop Simeon was appointed also by the Patriarch of Peć Jovan in 1609, and that all the subsequent bishops of Marcha during the 17th century were installed in Peć as Orthodox ones. The clash between Croatian and Serbian church historian on the subjects of the bishops of Marcha confessional loyalty is still unresolved, and different interpretation of the historical sources are present. The Pope, however, in 1611 expected a gradual implementation of the church union among the Orthodox population in the Habsburg military border. The center of this activity became the monastery of Marcha, and it was located on the estate of the Catholic Bishop of Zagreb. The Serbian historiography interpreted the bishops of Marcha as accepting the church union only on a formal level. The lower priesthood and the bulk of the Orthodox population remaining faithful to the old beliefs or to the orthodoxy. When Patriarch of Peć, Arsenie III, visited Marcha Monastery in 1692 or early 93, the circumstances for Marcha bishops changed dramatically, because the Patriarch was then on a campaign to crush the union in the area and to achieve the confirmation of his jurisdiction. Serbian church historian Dušan Kašić called this period of Patriarch's northern visitation as, I quote, a strange one, when bishops of Marcia were propter obedientiam Greek Catholic, but propter populum Orthodox. It is also true that the Catholic Church prepared the counter-offensive, masterminded by the Catholic Primus of Hungary, Cardinal Leopold Karl von Kolonich, and the failure of this counter-offensive was ascribed by Serbian historiography to the fact that in 1703 the Rákóczi uprising began, and that the court in Vienna needed the loyalty of its Orthodox subjects and soldiers on Hungarian soil, and thus temporarily deactivated plans for their conversion. The upheavals of Rákóczi rebellion and churnings among the population of different denominations in northern Croatia marked the period of Bishop of Marcia Gabriel Turčinović from 1701 to 1707, mentioned by our painter Kuzman Damjanović. The handwritten chronicle of Marcia and Lepavina monasteries began after 1745 remembers Bishop Turčinović as an honorable and peaceful bishop, unlike others before and after him, promoting the union forcefully and deemed by the chronicler as, I quote, bloodthirsty wolves which crushed the Lord's gate of Holy Zion and devoured the spiritual flock of Christ. The precariousness of political position and shifting loyalties of Marcia bishops are, to our mind, reflected in the unique iconographical scheme of the three icons of the Holy Trinity by Kuzma Damjanović. Significant differences among them could be observed, though. The two from Široko Selo and Povelić feature the seated figure in imperial sakos with royal scepters and triple crowns on their heads, while the third is dressed as Christ, holds the mundus, or the sphere, on his knee and features differently fashioned but still a triple crown. The research of colleague Ljiljana Stošić points rightfully towards the iconographical variant of Christ as King of Kings as a basic template for Damjanović's rendering of the theme. The icon of King as Kings the icon of Christ as King of Kings, were particularly favored in Orthodox communities on the northern and western fringes of the Balkan Orthodoxy in late 17th and early 18th century. The specific form of Christ's crown, consisting of three coronets placed one above the other, are actually a visual reference to papal tiara, and here it is used as a visual refutation of the primatus papae dogma by showing it on the head of Christ as the only rightful head of heavenly and earthly churches. By stressing the Christ's kingship and appropriating the tiara crown form, the image became distinctly polemical in nature and could have served as a sort of political visual argument against the church union, which primarily requested the acceptance of the absolute rule of the Roman Pope. The bishops of Marcia, as already pointed out, obeyed that law, nominally or truthfully, throughout the period. By placing such a crown on the figures of three-headed images of the Holy Trinity, painter Kuzma made an even more convincing visual argument in favor of the Orthodox ecclesiology and understanding of the nature of power and hierarchy in the Church. He also devised an ingenious way of merging it with yet another point of dispute, the filioque dogma, marking the Orthodox stance by painting the three heads as absolutely equal and with no hints of hierarchy among them. Damjanović adheres to the solutions devised ever since Perivlectos of Ohrid, where the three heads are shown in semi-profile, and a painterly solution to problems posed by showing the three heads en face. It is worth to note that, although iconographically quite unique compilations, the three icons of Kuzma Damjanovic are not unique in terms of usage of three-headed Trinity images as polemic tools in contact of the Orthodox and Greek Catholics. The Trinity images of vultus trifrons type appear, for example, in mid-18th century Transylvania, in the period where severe disputes between Orthodox and Greek Catholics arose. In research of colleague Anna Dumitran from Alba Iulia, the introduction of such images on Transylvanian soil is explained partly as a result of confessional clashes and the need to visualize the complicated Trinitarian dogma to the illiterate folk in a manner as explicit as possible. But she also rightfully pointed out that the initiative of the painters in illustrating this unusual subject should not be excluded. The same could also be said for the far North Croatian icons. We know for sure that he was the donor of the icons, and they were practically his votive gifts to the three churches. It is also worth to note here that one vultus trifrons is preserved as a fresco dating from the late 16th century in the Catholic Church of Saint Brzko in Kalnik, not far away from the Orthodox village community's Kozma painted for. Could he have been aware of it, or was it just a coincidence? Unfortunately, there is no reliable answer to this question now. In conclusion, we can suggest yet another speculation. The three icons could have been a result of an understanding and friendship of the shrewd and politically conscious priest Marko Milakovic, who navigated the unstable church jurisdictional situation, explaining it to his parishioners, and one painterly, rather unskilled or underskilled, but by no means unlettered painter. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Ja,
Thank you very much. And now we have Emma Mayan Fanar from Haifa University, and the topic of her paper is decrypting early Byzantine iconography in Shifta.
Good morning, everyone. Can you hear me? Yeah.
Excellent.
I would like to thank you for inviting me to this wonderful conference, and I will take you back in time and far away from here to the Holy Land of the 6th century. Okay. Far away from the center, deep into the sands of the Negev desert, one can still find remains of one flourishing Byzantine settlement. Among others, Shifta's magnificent ruins stand out. Shifta, a royal settlement in the Negev from the 4th, was a royal settlement in the Negev from the 4th, 5th to the 8th, 9th centuries, and then abandoned. It was not very large, with about 170 houses, some two-storied, housing approximately 2,200 people. Its population was apparently quite rich, as attested by its 3 churches built according to the practice current elsewhere in the land of Israel. That number of churches in a small place was not unusual for the Byzantine settlements in Palestine, but all 3 Shifta churches were much invested and painted, with geometric floor mosaics, while the 3 apses of the northern church were clad in marble. Still, even at its peak, Shifta was on the margins of the Byzantine Empire. Contrary to nearby Nisana, which was on pilgrimage route to St. Catherine, or Elusa, the capital of the area mentioned in several historical sources, Shifta seems neither especially important nor situated on any important roads or trade routes. So much so that when in the 6th century Antonius of Piacenza passes nearby on his way to St. Catherine and stays overnight at the hostel of St. George in Mitzpe Shifta, he remains silent about Shifta despite being so close to it. Precisely these features make the transfiguration scene found in the lateral apse of its southern church so significant for this research, as it still preserves remnants of pre-iconoclastic iconography lost everywhere else. The date of the construction of the southern church remains unclear. Some scholars suggest that it is the oldest of three churches built in the already existing settlement and adapted to the area. However, an early and even late 6th century date has also been proposed. The confusion in its dating arises from an inscription on the lower border of a decorated lintel which supposedly belonged to the church but was not found in its original place. The inscription states, under the presbyter Eidos in the year 3. The date has survived but partially, nor is its chronological system clear. The only secure fact is that the southern church was still in use as late as 639, as ascertained from an inscription stating that the floor was laid anew that year. In sum, we have no reliable factual date of the southern church, a circumstance that projects directly onto the date of the wall painting of the Transfiguration in its lateral apse. The church underwent several reconstructions, as is apparent from various styles of architectural ornaments found within or around it. The stage the wall painting belongs to remains unknown, and we have hardly any materials comparable stylistically to the painting. As surviving examples of wall paintings from the early Byzantine period in the area and elsewhere are scarce and mostly fragmentary. Still, considering all historical, archaeological, epigraphic and stylistic data available, we can generally place it in the late 5th or early 6th century. The wall painting was first identified as the Transfiguration and described in 1914. However, this somewhat lengthy description, which you can see, is not accurate and lacks many details. Although the figure's identification is correct, the description of their postures and colors was partly conjectured through records to knowledge of later Byzantine examples of the Transfiguration, but not necessarily seen in Shifta itself. Only a combined effort of scholars from three disciplines, archaeology, conservation and art history, as well as use of most advanced photographic equipment, allowed us to see it in a new light and to understand its significance for the study of early Christian iconography. Despite the fact that the painting is extremely damaged and its right side erased almost completely, the Transfiguration can still be recognized beyond doubt. Christ's head, enclosed in a very large halo, painted in shades of light pink inside the mandorla, is clearly visible in the upper part of the apse center. Only a small fragment remains of Christ's face, especially visible on its left side in the area of the upper eye and an ear, where long white strokes of yellow, brown and dark brown overlap. Christ's face was painted in shades of pink. Above his one surviving eyebrow, long white strokes of highlights are attested. Other remaining outlines allow Christ's right hand to be reconstructed. Proportionally enlarged, it extends from a heavy sleeve raised up to the level of his chest. We can also follow the curve of his left hand, as well as prominent round curve of drapery above his left palm. However, the palm itself was damaged beyond recognition. On the left, two figures of the apostles are still visible. Both lack a halo. John is recognized by the last letters of his name inscribed next to the lower part of the body. He is depicted prostrate, his right hand reaching forward, while his left hand is raised, most probably to support his head. Behind John is the figure of Peter, recognized by remnants of a beard and white curly hair. He is most probably kneeling, as there is not enough room for a standing figure. His right hand gestures toward Christ, remnants of fingers still visible close to the curve of John's back. Because Peter's figure is in better state of preservation than the rest of the painting, one gets a sense of volume in the rendering of his body and an illusionistic touch in the surviving fragments, which preserve a mixture of colors. Here you can see the fragments from his face and fingers. The figure to Peter's left is depicted full length, standing beside the border of the apse, head encompassed by a huge pink halo. Its overall appearance and the prevalence of his garment's brown colors suggest that this is Elijah. His eyes, eyebrows, nose, and a mouth are barely traceable due to the visibility of the initial sketch in ochre in a yellow tone. The remnants of Elijah's figure show that he is depicted disproportionately huge, most probably sharing the level of the apostles. A greenish landscape surrounds the figures bordering on Christ's pink mandorla. It's not clear if a mountain is depicted beneath Christ's feet, but even if it exists, it doesn't predominate the landscape as it does in later examples of the scene. The reconstruction proposed here of the scene of the Transfiguration in Shifta shows a compositional arrangement of the figures. Most noticeable is the placement of all the figures surrounding Christ on approximately the same level, without or with slight elevation of the prophets. Furthermore, we can identify the apostles' gestures and postures very precisely. Rays of light emerging from the body of Christ, which are impossible to see with bare eye, and in fact were missed in earlier descriptions of the scene, were identified by using visible-induced luminescence imaging, which detected and mapped the use of the Egyptian blue pigment as an underpainting in particular places. Thus, an existence of such an important iconographic element as rays of light was confirmed. For the first time, despite heavy damage caused by natural and deliberate iconoclasms, this remarkable relic of early Byzantine art finally reveals its actual and unique iconography. We can now discuss the importance of Shifta's transfiguration in light of Byzantine iconography of this scene. The Transfiguration is one of the formative events in the New Testament and is told in 3 synoptic Gospels. Early church fathers emphasized the significance of the Transfiguration as revelation or epiphany and interpret it in eschatological terms, linking to the mystery of the second coming. Despite the rich theological background, the history of the visual representation of Transfiguration is not clear. Surviving pre-iconoclastic examples are scarce. One in Porridge is known only from a sketch. The Transfiguration in Chiesa del Salvatore in Naples is known only from 9th century written account. We are left with 2 actual survivals, an apse mosaic in Santa Apollinare in Classe in Ravenna and another in St. Catherine mosaic in Sinai. All known examples are dated to the 6th century and present diverse iconographic schemes of the scene. By contrast, the scene seems to have become very popular in the post-iconoclastic period, appearing in different media, its iconography largely standardized. Scholars therefore argue that the scene was barely used in the architectural setting before the iconoclastic period, and no unified iconography still existed. Furthermore, the Sinai Transfiguration, the closest iconographic parallel to the post-iconoclastic scenes, was regarded as their ultimate model. The analysis of Shifta Transfiguration suggests that this presumption is not correct. Of all the surviving examples, the Sinai Transfiguration is the only representative from the eastern part of the empire, geographically being the closest to that in Shifta. It is not clear if the Shifta Transfiguration is slightly earlier than Sinai, but the difference between the two is remarkable. While the Shifta Transfiguration is closely linked to the Gospel texts, clearly distinguishing the apostles' gestures and movements, the Sinai Transfiguration recedes from the Gospel narratives. Not only do John and James mirror each other in the posture and gesture, contradicting the gospel narrative and their appearance in later scene, the depiction of Peter beneath the Christ's feet is unique and occurs in no other scenes of the Transfiguration. In fact, the figure is much distorted and looks like the reworking of the posture of John. However, unlike John, he looks upwards, perhaps to accord with the words of the Gospel. How many times?
You haven't got.
Okay. So you can see here that the scene is actually coincide with the iconographic program of the 6th century church in St. Catherine's, while our scene in Shifter is very close to the later examples, both by the posture of Peter and other decorative motifs. So, if so, I will conclude. The Transfiguration of Shifter reveals an ultimate link between early Byzantine and post-iconoclastic iconography. It is a unique piece of evidence of the existence of the scheme for the Middle Byzantine iconography of the scene, certainly in the 6th century, if not earlier. It can be closely linked to post-iconographic scheme of the scene, in fact much closer than the scene in St. Catherine, retaining, however, certain 6th century elements, which would to be redeveloped in later examples. Its existence undoubtedly suggests that post-iconoclastic iconography emerged from early models, which existed on much broader scale than we know. Shifter's Transfiguration reflects such an early model, which was probably popular enough to be copied in the small provincial settlements, and on the other hand, could be altered in order to adapt it to different messages in Sine, Ravenna, and elsewhere. The scene of Transfiguration in Shifter occupies the southern apse, but the central and northern apses of the southern church contained religiously imagery as well. We can only wonder what subject could have been painted there, as well as in other churches in Shifter. The dead city in the Negev still awaits its awakening, and who knows what secrets are kept in its stones.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Emma. And our next speaker comes also from Israel, from Jerusalem, Anastasia Cashman, and the topic of her presentation is connected with the cult of the Panagia Hierosolymitissa, the Virgin of Jerusalem, an icon from the center of Christianity or a peripheral artifact.
Thank you very much. I'm taking you 1300 years later. Okay. In the following paper, I would like to present one of the most interesting enigmas of Orthodox art of Jerusalem, the icon known as Panagia Hierosolymitissa, or the Most Holy Lady of Jerusalem. Can you hear me? Yes, thank you. This large-scale icon is preserved and venerated today in the shrine of the tomb of the Virgin in Gethsemane. Its reproductions are found almost in every shop in the old city of Jerusalem, as the icon is considered a patroness for the Orthodox believers of Jerusalem. In spite of its devotional importance for local Orthodox Christians as well as for pilgrims, the Virgin of Jerusalem has not attracted much scientific attention. What is known about it originates mostly from two different traditions that circulate in Jerusalem. Russian tour guides prefer the story in which two components are usually combined: the ascription of authorship of the icon to a Russian nun named Sergia, and the story of a massive flood that took place inside the Virgin tomb in 1955. Although there is no agreement when the icon was painted. According to one, it was painted by Sergia before 1905, when it was presented by the Russian nuns to the Greek Orthodox Church at Gethsemane. According to this version, the place where the icon stands today, behind the tomb of the Virgin, was chosen by the icon itself after it was lowered to the chapel's floor after the water had been cleared out. According to the other version, Sergia painted the icon only after the flood, in the middle of the
1950s. These details contain number of discrepancies. The Greek inscription on the stone antipendium that holds the miraculous icon for public veneration declares that the construction was donated at the time of Patriarch Damianos by a certain donor, Hegumen Joachim Anuphantopoulos from Crete in the year 1906. The metal stamp on the iron reza, made of course only after the icon is already completed, indicates it was made by the Moscow-based silversmith workshop of Borisov and gives a terminus antiquem as 1880. The second tradition, the one preferred by the Greek Orthodox authorities in Jerusalem, fits this chronology better and goes as follows. In 1870, there lived a monastic iconographer called Tatiana in the Russian monastery of St. Mary the Magdalene at the foot of Mount of Olives. One night, a lady appeared to her in a vision, saying, "Sister Tatiana, I have come so that you can paint me." Tatiana replied, "Let it be, blessed sister. However, I am an iconographer and not a painter." The lady replied, "Well then, you should paint me using your iconographic style." Sister Tatiana said, "I do not have any plank of wood to use." The lady then gave her the plank of wood and told her to paint. The sister started her iconography and she noticed the guest's appearance transfigured in front of her. The lady's mantle started to turn into gold and her face was glowing. The lady spoke to her saying, "O blessed Tatiana, you are the only person after the apostle and evangelist Luke to have this opportunity to write an icon of me again." Sister Tatiana then realized that she was in the presence of Theotokos. In shock, she awoke from her vision. She immediately went and informed her mother superior of the vision in details. Tatiana returned to her cell, and before entering, she noticed a bright light shining through the door. She hastened to the abbess once again. Together they returned to Tatiana's cell. Inside they could smell a beautiful and heavenly fragrance, and the light was so bright that only then did they realize the aroma and the light were coming from the icon of the Holy Virgin. The mysterious and miraculous appearance of the icon had the sisters in shock, but our Holy Mother, the Theotokos, appeared once more to Tatiana and said, "Now take me from here down to my home in Gethsemane of Jerusalem." This is what the abbess and the sister did. According to this account, the icon's appearance occurred in 1870 to his sister from the Russian monastery of St. Mary the Magdalene at the foot of Mount of Olives. This historical detail cannot be true as well, since at the time even the land of the place where St. Mary the Magdalene's convent would later be built had not been purchased yet by the Russians. They did so only 15 years later. This, however, doesn't mean that prior to the establishing of Russian monasteries in Jerusalem and its surroundings, there were no Russian nuns or Russian icon painting nuns in Jerusalem. It is known with certainty that there were Russian sisters living in Jerusalem in the 19th century, whose presence grew after the establishment of the official Russian mission in the Holy Land in the 1847 and the start of Russian construction projects from the 1860s until the early 20th century. It is important to understand how these traditions are combined to each other and the nature of the historical truth each contains. Research published recently by Peter Stegny, on the Russian scholar, on the life of Hegumen Serafim Kuznetsov offered considerable information about nun Sergia. Born Irina Trofimova in Russia, near Tula, at the age of 16 in 1905, she was taken by her mother Alipia with her younger sister Anastasia to Palestine. In Jerusalem, first, she learned icon painting at the Eleon Russian monastery, where she and her sister lived. According to Stegny, her main mentor at the time was a Greek painter monk named Spiridon or Spiro. Later, for more than 30 years, Sergia lived as the spiritual daughter of Father Seraphim at the Viri Galilei monastery on the Mount of Olives, where she had an icon painting studio. A number of icons were identified by the author of the monograph as they are signed and dated from the 1920s to the mid-60s by Sergia herself, as for example the icon of Theotokos of Galilee from the Church of the Death Annunciation at the Viri Galilei monastery. While the faces of the Jerusalem Virgin and the Child, as well as their hands seen through the riza, resemble the style of Sergia's hands, Stegny stressed throughout his book that Sergia only restored the icon after it was damaged in the massive flood of 1955 and did not paint it from the scratch. Art historians would probably have difficulties calling such a major repainting restoration, but in church cycles the addition of a new layer of paint to a damaged one is indeed usually referred as ponavienie, renewing. Given that the second part of the puzzle now seems to be resolved, it is time to tackle the first part, namely the origin of the Jerusalem Theotokos. Both dates, in the immediate surrounding, the date of the marble antipendium before 1906 and the date of the stamp on silver riza before 1880 support its being from the second half of the 19th century at latest. Interestingly, both traditions preserved in Jerusalem, the Russian and the Greek ones, while disagreeing about many details, nonetheless agree upon one thing: the Jerusalem Virgin icon no doubt has Russian origins. I wish to claim that it is only natural to posit a Russian origin for the Jerusalem Virgin, since the Jerusalem Virgin schema, Jerusalimskая икона Божьей Матери, was probably a purely Russian phenomenon until 19th century. It first appeared in the late 11th century Hagia Sophia Cathedral in Novgorod, where a copy of the tomb of Christ led to the introduction of a complex Jerusalem symbolism and liturgy within the cathedral. Thus, the first icon of the Virgin of Jerusalem was in fact the Virgin of what can be called the Novgorodian Jerusalem. In the second half of the 16th century, the icon of the Jerusalem Virgin was moved, together with a copy of the tomb of Christ and association Jerusalem symbolism, to the Dormition of the Virgin Cathedral in Moscow, and from there it spread to other locations in Russia, multiplying into a number of variations. There can be no doubt that the Russian Jerusalem Virgin was also exported to Jerusalem in the 19th century, as can be seen from the local Jerusalem copy inscribed in both Arabic and Russian that can be still seen in the northern iconostasis of the Melkite Annunciation Cathedral in Jerusalem. Here, the icon follows the Moscow scheme. The child sits on the right arm of the Virgin, whose fingers are concealed under his robes. The child holds a scroll in his left hand and blesses with his right, while Joachim and Anna flank the pair on both sides. It seems very plausible that the idea of creating the Jerusalem Virgin in Jerusalem was indeed Russian, but did it follow the Russian visual schema? Looking at the position of the figures as well as at iconographical details and objects, it immediately becomes clear that the Jerusalem icon does not follow the Russian Jerusalem Virgin iconography. The Gethsemane Holy Mother holds the child on her left arm and gesticulates to him with her right, as the traditional Hodigitria. The child blesses with his right hand, and his left holds a round orb with a cross on its top, a relatively rare detail on Hodigitria icons until 19th century. However, looking at the Theotokos images in other churches of Jerusalem, one can clearly see that this Hodegetria formula with Christ holding an orb was favored during the late 19th century. This can be seen in the images of the Greek Orthodox chapels of the Holy Sepulchre, such as St. James, Mary the Magdalene, the 40 Martyrs, inside the Coptic chapel behind the Holy Tomb, as well as in the Church of John the Baptist, and in the Melkite Annunciation Cathedral already mentioned. And this is also the case of the so-called Bethlehem Virgin. This is also the formula found in the Jerusalem proscenitaria icons that were mass-produced in Jerusalem in the 19th century as memorabilia for Orthodox pilgrims worldwide. Here the image of Theotokos is placed on the left of the Holy Sepulchre Church, paired with image of Pantocrator on the right. I suggest that the Russian nun who painted the Jerusalem Virgin in the second half of the 19th century was following the popular Greek Orthodox tradition of the time. But even in doing so, she was remaining stylistically faithful to her particular Russian style. I would like to finish this presentation with a final comparison. You see, this is the Greek icons, not only Greek. In the main church of the monastery of Viri Galilei, there is an icon inscribed in Russian, Iverskaya, Святой город Иерусалим, our Mother of Iveron, Holy City of Jerusalem, dated 1861, namely before the establishment of the Russian monastic convents in the Holy Land. The second icon, already presented, hanging in the chapel of the Death Annunciation of the Virgin on the territory of the same monastery, entitled Хранительница Галилейская, the Keeper of Galilee, painted by Sinful Sergia, 1960, the same iconographer who renovated the Gethsemane Virgin after the flood. The difference in time between these two icons is almost 100 years, but they demonstrate clearly the continuation of style of the same, in this case Russian school, and loyalty to its tradition, but with an element of the master's touch too. I do not know who the painter of the early icon was, and if I were to write a novel about it, I would certainly call her Tatiana, but I have no proof. But there is a good chance that this icon originates from the same circle of the original Gethsemane image. You can imagine then that if the original image of the Jerusalem icon looked like that of Iverskaya, then the changes made by Sergia, who inevitably added a touch of personal style to the image, was not a crude change, but rather a gentle restoration, as she was faithful follower of her monastic artistic tradition. To conclude, the Jerusalem Virgin icon continued the local 19th century Jerusalem tradition of Theotokos iconography. It also incorporated visual models and stylistic features of Russian icon painting of the second half of the 19th century, created by Russian nuns nurtured on a blend of their national and local Jerusalem Greek traditions. It was a combination of the art of both centers and peripheries. Such a combination is the most basic determining feature of the Christian art of the Holy Land. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Anastasia, for this very interesting paper connected with the non-history painters. And now we have Cyprian Firea from Cluj, and the paper of his presentation is named Identities Revealed by Symbols and Details, Patrons and Painters of Late Medieval Transylvanian Altarpieces.
Thank you very much. First of all, I would like to thank the organizer for accepting my presentation. This is my first participation in art readings conference.
Can you find your? Where is?
This is it. No.
PDF
Yes.
or? Okay. No.
I think this is it.
I will go slideshow. So
Okay, that's good. So earlier I was thinking that my presentation will be the most marginal and let's say most far away presentation, but Rosa D'Amico helped me to feel somehow inside, because I'm coming with some Western art in the very in a sea, in an ocean of Eastern Byzantine, post-Byzantine art. So my presentation is referring to rather Renaissance art from Transylvania. Medieval and Renaissance. Much of the medieval art preserved in Transylvania, nowadays Romania, is considered to be an anonymous art in terms of both author and commissioner. Very often in local museums, the visitor may find the label with the caption "Anonymous from Transylvania." However, research conducted in the last 2 decades succeeded to reveal the identities of several artists and or patrons of this predominantly anonymous art. In some cases, these identities are hinted by secondary, marginal, and sometimes very tiny details contained by the artworks themselves. These may be initials, disguised symbols, heraldry, portraits of crypto portraits, workshop marks, etc. The monumental work, their artifacts of Anton Legner, prove that the allegedly anonymous craftsmen of the medieval period were in fact much more interested or keen to reveal their identities or to perpetuate their memoria. Transylvanian medieval altarpieces, a local branch of the German Flügelretabel, represented a widespread category, and they used to decorate many of the altars in the churches of the Roman Rite in the province. The Reformation that was adopted in Transylvania at the middle of the 16th century put a stop to the production of this class of objects. Even though the largest part of the original repertoire of altarpieces disappeared, about 70 pieces still survive, entirely or only in fragments. They encompass roughly 450 painted panels and about 100 sculptures from the period between 1450 and 1530. Usually, we don't know the artists which created these altarpieces, they often being presented as anonymous from Transylvania. A notable exception is represented by a painter called Vincentius, active in the first 3 decades of the 16th century in Sibiu. Sibiu was one of the most important settlements of the province, a free royal town. This artist of the early Renaissance Transylvania used to sign his works, or at least to put calligraphic inscriptions on the scenes, thus simplifying the work of the art historian. We know several of his signatures on both panel and mural painting, but this remained fairly a singular case. Made in Sibiu in 1519, in a period when Vincentius himself was active, but definitely not one of his works, there is a spectacular altarpiece preserved dismembered in the Lutheran church of the town. The great altarpiece used to display a passion cycle in 8 scenes if closed, and on the festive side, a large crucifixion as a central image surrounded by 4 other scenes. The last have been overpainted in Baroque period. The central panel itself documents a very interesting phenomenon, namely the adoption of the Lutheran Reformation by the municipality and the town of Sibiu. In 1545, the saints and the other persons participating at the scene of the crucifixion have been erased, and in their place a conspicuous inscription with golden letters on a blue-black background has been placed. The one and only image remaining was the crucified Christ projecting on a blue background. This is one of the most coherent adaptations of the medieval iconography to the commandments of the Lutheran Reformation in Transylvania. Both art and patronage related with this altarpiece indicate that it was an important one. Very probably it used to decorate the altar of the Holy Cross in the axis of the central nave of the parish church. The painter was a skilled artist, a Renaissance painter using prints of German masters such as painting. The last aspect is also documented by the particular landscapes present on the altarpiece in Sibiu, with many connections with the Danube school of painting from the beginning of 16th century. By the analysis of marginal details such as the coat of arms instead or the predella, it was possible to identify the patrons of the commissioners of the altarpiece. One on the left, thus on the secondary or subordinated position, was Johannes de Lula. He was the royal judge of Sibiu, head of the royal mint of Sibiu, head of the royal soul chamber, trustee of Queen Anne of Hungary, and one of the richest citizens in Sibiu. The second, but in fact the first in the hierarchy, was Paulus de Tomor. He was a castellan of Făgăraș fortress, and he later became, he entered the Franciscan order and became Archbishop of Kolocsa, and he died in the Battle of Mohacs as commander-in-chief of the Hungarian army. Nothing was known about the artist who executed the commission of such a prestigious association of patrons. A very thorough examination of the paintings in its marginal details may, however, prove to be relevant. This scene of hearing at Caiaphas contains a tiny detail meant to identify the author of this work of art. Above the head of Caiaphas, attached to the wall near what would be an architectural superstructure of the throne, designed in grisaille, a pilaster crowned by the carved image of a pagan goddess, and partly covered by a red and white standard held by a Landsknecht, there is a little shield equally designed in grisaille. It contains as charges 3 other escutcheons, ranged 2 in the chief and 1 in the base of the shield. Although the tinctures are missing, it can be easily recognized as the widely spread coat of arms of painters all over Europe. Undoubtedly, these dissimulated details refer to the artist responsible for the painting of our altarpiece. If we take a closer look, we can notice on the lower escutcheon a short inscription, in fact 2 superimposed initials. They are not very easy to decipher, but they should be read as ST. Who then they identify? This is a monogram naming the Simon the Painter, Simon Pictor Magister. He was active in Sibiu, and we know him from sources. In the 1520s, was the leading artist, and he was the representative of the Painters Guild in front of the town council. He owned a house and a workshop. He paid taxes to the town, but we had no work attributed to him. Thus, the marginal detail revealed us the identity of an anonymous artist of the Renaissance period from Sibiu, which was undoubtedly one of the most important painters of the province, even being his position in the confraternity and also his prestigious commissioners. Let us take a closer look to another altarpiece, which in fact is now a composite and a strange combination of 2 different altarpieces of 2 different types. Above we can notice entirely preserved small Renaissance retable designed on the model of the Italian pala. From the second, we have only the lower part, which is a predella, and two decoration for crowning, parts of the crowning. The second altarpiece was undoubtedly a winged one designed on the late Gothic models. The installation of the two components has been done something in the modern period, and the scholarly research found is as such in late 19th century in the village of Șaieș near Sighișoara. Sighișoara is another town of Transylvania. Even though the frame of the two altarpieces is very different as style, the paintings are stylistically connected from the point of view of the period. They both show Renaissance features. The painter of the small retable was certainly very well trained master. He used prints of Dürer and Schäufelein in a very personal and convincing manner. But we will not insist here on his skills and then on the artist, but we direct our attention towards the patron of the altarpiece. In the main scene of the altarpiece, a holy kindred with Saint Anne, the Virgin Mary and Infant Jesus, there is a, so this is the main scene, there is a kneeling donor, unknown, an ecclesiastic person, tonsured and dressed in garb. Who was him? In order to reveal his identity, we should move now on the second and fragmentary altarpiece. On the predella is to be found another, on the predella there is a small shield with a monogram on it, and this monogram is to be found in another place, namely on a sacristy door lintel from a church in the village of Copșa Mare, some 20 kilometers away from the place where the altarpiece, the composed altarpiece, was found. On the architectural element, we have also a completion to the monogram, which is an inscription with which tell us to whom this monogram belonged. This belonged to this Lazarus, who used to be a decretorum doctor, who in 1519 was parish priest in Copșa. And this is also related to the iconography of the predella of the small altarpiece, which designate the resurrection of Lazarus, which is a transparent reference to the donor with the same name of Lazarus. So we know him from sources. He studied in Krakow. He obtained the title of Decretorum Doctor, and he was in between 1519 and 1521 parish priest in Copșa Mare, and where he commissioned the two altarpieces. Sometimes in the later history, they were removed and replaced in the other village. So, in conclusion, the analysis of marginalia, of details of the paintings, of signs, symbols, monograms, etc., corroborated with other visual or documentary sources, may provide significant support for the identification of both artists and commissioners of medieval and Renaissance artworks. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you very much for all participants, and I hope that everyone from this morning session is here and waiting for the questions. And I open discussion. Shall we start with the questions for Rasica Gicheva? Is there any questions about the Бръшлян, изкуството и религията на древните траки в Русица? Our second speaker was Marina Koljeva. Is she present? Okay. Do we have questions for Marina? Perhaps for our third presenter, Nikos Chausidis. Okay. I will give you my...
Thank you. Thank you very much for your talk. I have a question concerning the comparison you showed to the Ohrid. You claim it as a hybrid or masculine type of Mary, and you compared it to the 15th century, or you showed the 15th century representation of God the Father with Christ. Do you have early examples which depict God the Father with Christ like that, earlier than the 11th century? Because I do not know earlier than 13th, and I would like to know about that.
May I answer on Russian?
Yes.
К сожалению, эта компарация, которая была с Бог-Отец, она еще не обработана с моей стороны. Я только употребил статью Лазарева на эту тему. Не могу вам сказать, где она находится, я не записал, но если вас интересует, я могу вам показать и послать статью.
Есть более ранние...
По-моему, есть, да.
Ранее, чем 11 век.
Это не знаю. Ранее 11-го не знаю.
Просто я с этим не знаком, поэтому мне это особо интересно.
Да. Так что мы будем в контакте, я сколько могу вам помогу. Так что...
Спасибо.
Спасибо вам.
A bearded female makes me think of Saint Walpurgis, who was a woman crucified who was depicted with a beard, but it's a much later thing. Yeah, but anyway, my question was really about the other part of your paper where you showed the birthing position and related it to these moments of grief in the Theotokos and in Rachel. And looking at the texts for those scenes, even in the text, there's a very strong parallel between the moment of birth and the moment of death. And I was wondering how far you could push your interpretation to take that into account, whether you think that this rhombus position actually does point in both directions.
I will try to answer on English, but I think that the rhombus is in the not in the level the subconcisional. On the subconcisional level, it isn't real inspiration of the painter, but I think that it's the level. I don't think that it was really inspiration on his mind, you know. It's archetypal level of the iconography that is in our subconcision. If it is enough to answer you, I don't know.
I think
there are a lot of this kind of presentation in folklore, in ornamentic. So when see these pictures, some contour of this picture come to our subconcision. So we have affinity of this kind of pictures, you know, and maybe it is the motivation for this kind of iconography.
Is there any questions? Please.
Another question about those animals, those monkeys from Marco Monastery. Do you think they could be interpreted as devils? The devils who erected the Temple of Solomon, because they are in a position of erection of the columns. I think it could be possible, but I'm not sure. What's your opinion?
Lazar Mirković. Lazar je ime njegovo. Da? Lazar Mirković has interpretation about this composition. So if you want some kind of details, you will see this paper of. I will send you the bibliographical components of this. So I think that his interpretation are in the same level which you tell. Thank you.
More questions for Nikos? And now the questions for Rosa D'Amico. Okay.
The frescoes you showed seemed in different styles. Would you say they were, because from your talk it seemed that you, at least I understood that you were dating them more or less to the same period. So could you just comment on this?
Na francusko. In Italia non ci voglio. Les fresques sont créées, sont nées pour la volonté meni je teško. In Italijan, no, jer sada malo sam umorna, samo naturalmente. Sì. Possiamo, perché adesso sono un po' stanca. Allora, gli affreschi sono nati 2 secoli dopo la costruzione della chiesa. Per 2 secoli la chiesa è rimasta senza pitture, solo le pietre sono state lavorate fino alla fine, le superfici sono levigate, questo significa che non hanno avuto pitture. In questo momento, quando si è sentita di più la necessità di mettere in relazione l'Oriente e l'Occidente a causa della conquista di Costantinopoli, si è voluto dare un nuovo aspetto alla Chiesa, questo luogo che ha ricordato l'antico rapporto tra il monte, questo monte della provincia di Bologna e il monte Sinai, così che alla fine sono state dipinte storie di Santa Caterina, che naturalmente è la titolare del monte del Sinai, del monastero del Sinai, uniti a elementi che fanno pensare alla necessità della crociata. Così anche il giudizio finale, Stražni sud, il jugement dernier, è stato interpretato come un elemento, la morte come superamento cioè l'eroismo di quelli che si sacrificano, che vanno verso la salvezza attraverso la mediazione della crocifissione e degli altri episodi biblici e il giudizio finale come conclusione di questo itinerario. Non so se può essere... Prego.
Grazie. Any questions? And now there was the paper of Alexander Kuchekovic about the three-headed Holy Trinity icons from Croatia in Orthodox painting, mostly. Okay, first.
It is not a question, it's more like a comment or idea for further research. You show in your presentation a three-headed figure in Mostač. Mostač is village in Herzegovina in the vicinity of Tvrdoš Monastery. And as we know, Tvrdoš Monastery was a center for planning rebellions against Ottoman rule in 16th and first half of 17th century. And during these rebellion plans, they have connections or some kind of connections with the Vatican. So maybe it is the similar political context as in Slavonia and Croatia. So maybe.
Yes, thank you for the suggestion. Very nice suggestion.
One more questions from this side.
You mentioned some images also from Transylvania. There are some more with this theme, this subject, and very recent, 1 week ago, appeared an article about this Saint Trinity in the same body and Vultus Trifons. And I would also like to connect the presence of many images like that in Transylvania with the fact that in Transylvania developed one of the radical reform branch, namely the anti-Trinitarian or Unitarian Church, and maybe the field for these images in Orthodox milieu is also given by this presence.
On my choice of the Transylvanian example. I chose this Transylvanian as an example because it was identified by the colleague Anna Dumitran. I'm sure that you know whom I'm talking about, as the earliest one, and it was chronologically the closest to my examples. She identifies several others in her works, but they are all later. So there was no time or space, to develop this theory any further. But thank you for your suggestion. I think this.
I have a question. Do you have any examples that were made later, let's say 19th, 20th, 21st century? And if do you know any examples that the early images were destroyed as non-appropriate, probably?
These three icons I presented are really one of occurrence, and they don't appear in the area before or after that. And I think they are pretty much a personal initiative, in this. I cannot be sure. As Professor Makuljevic yesterday stressed, we simply don't know because we don't have enough evidence. We can speculate. But there are later ones. If you notice, the diptychon from Studenica Monastery Treasury is from 1818, and it was painted by Alexei Lazarus. The important thing is maybe to note that the later examples also adhere to these traditional types. There are no noted and preserved examples of the usage of popular images from the West, like Vultus Trifons. Like I hoped to show the continuity with the post-Byzantine epoch and the renderings of the subjects in the post-Byzantine context in the Balkans with these three icons I presented. So the answer is no, and I don't have any knowledge of the purposeful destruction of those images. No, no.
Two minor points. The first one I should have mentioned, but it occurred while in the present. I think there are a couple of patriarchal letters issued in condemnation of the Trimorphon, whose reference I cannot recall at second, but I need to check out and let you know. The second, yesterday we had in a presentation by Dr. Valkova about this Slepchen Parisia, where there is a carving supposedly made after Professor Gergova by Onufrius. I don't know whether you agree with the attribution or whether it fits with the iconographical pattern.
Can you remind me, Costa, the first suggestion of yours was, it slipped my mind. Yes. Yes. That's very interesting because I wasn't aware. I was really convinced that the Orthodox theology did not refer precisely to the three fronts, as Pope, papal bulls, and the Saint Antoninus on Florence explicitly say that you shouldn't paint the Trinity with three heads. So thank you. That's very, very, very useful for me.
I have a little question, but we don't have time for you. About the Croatian written sources about this presentation.
Croatian written sources are non-existent for these three items. Mm-hmm. They only deal with the questions of the church union in the area. But there is a book by Professor Sanja Cvetnić in Zagreb. It's called something like Post-Tridentine Iconography in Croatia, Post-Tridentine Iconography and the Croatian Painting, and she refers to the Vultus Trimfrons in St. Brzko at Kalnik, and she explains the oddity of the image.
I mean on the existence of, for example, sketchbooks from this time. Croatian sketchbook, yes, Croatian sketchbook.
I wasn't aware of them.
Okay, okay, and now, okay, yes. Does anyone? I'm sure that you have questions for Emma. No, on the Anastasia.
Yes.
Okay, for Anastasia.
You. Any evidences that this transfiguration scene is painted right on the stones, or there are archaeological evidences of an existence of a surface between the stone and the paper?
No surface. It's directly on the stone. Directly on the stone, this and on the other ups. On the middle up, on the central ups, there is fresco. It's a fresco. So it's two different techniques. Really two different.
That means it is not 6th century.
That means
it is not 6th century. It's later.
No, it's not. The settlement didn't exist later. So it's not. It can be later.
Yes, because of the Persians. But they came in 611. In the Common Land.
Yes, but if you take all the data about the settlement, this one and another, and other settlements, they actually started to degenerate already in the late 6th century. All of them, people started to leave them. We don't know why. So the project is about that, and many details, iconographic and stylistic, says that nothing can be later than 6th century. Where we even can claim that it's earlier than 6th century. It might be late 5th. And actually, it's not the only example of the painting directly on the stones in our country.
How many such examples you have in Jordan, for example?
In Jordan, you don't have anything like that. You don't have anything. But you do have, we're working with the restorator, and she does have comparable examples. Actually, her work was published in PLOS 1.1, and you can see there online the discussion about it as well. It's rare, but it happens.
Okay, thank you. And we have a question for Anastasia Cashman. For Anastasia Cashman, thank you for your presentation. I have, I think, 2 comments. Because obviously, as studying earlier periods, also obviously we should have for the late 19th and for the 20th century, we should look for written sources. So I think that for Hierosolymitissa, which is also for me very interesting, is there a mention of that icon, I don't know, in printed guides, or in printed books and booklets from 20th century? Where is the first mention of it? And also, on the other hand, for me studying proskenitaria of Jerusalem, it was very interesting that on the late examples from the late 19th century, especially after 1870, that type iconographically became present. Yes, but before we have on proskenitaria painted before that period, there is image of Mother of God, but it's iconographically totally different. And that is something that is very interesting. Thank you.
Yes, thank you very much for your question. The earliest mentioning in written sources that I found is Agapheni, the Moldavian-born monk who was a monk in Mount Athos, and then as the Athos monk he came to Jerusalem, and he mentions the venerated image of Mother of God behind the tomb of the Virgin in 1845. And the earliest Jerusalem icon that I found, the proskenitaria type, that is dated with this image is of 1856. Now the question is who was first. You know, I don't really. This is this part that I should that I concentrate most of my energy is to try to understand if there was some kind of type of the Jerusalem Virgin before, and then the Russians, you know, copied one of the popular images in Jerusalem, or they were first who created this image, and suddenly it became so popular. I still don't know who was the first, if it was the Greek formula that entered the Russian style interpretation or vice versa. But it is in 1845, there is a good chance it was there already.
1845 is the first mention of icon venerated in Gethsemane Church.
Behind the tomb of the Virgin, we don't know how it looked like, of course. Yes. But chronologic here is critical. And you are completely correct that before that time you have on these proskenitaria icons 2 or even 3 types of the Virgin, but also Christ is different. He doesn't hold the globe, he holds the book. And suddenly he holds, I think you should look at, and another thing is that at that time in the late 19th century we see all kind of virgins with the local names. There is a Hagiota Photissa of the Holy Sepulchre itself, but it's still there, it's venerated there. Or the Eleona Virgin, that means of different monasteries and churches in the Holy Land that suddenly have their own images.
Is there any questions? No? Okay.
There is any chance to remove the Riza and see what's nice, or at least see the back of the icon? No.
Well, you know, this is probably the most venerated icon in Jerusalem.
Mm-hmm.
But you know what? I have a great example for you. Emma has a student that was working the last year on the frescoes and the icon paintings on Golgotha. And she found such wonderful findings that the patriarchy opened, you know, all the Rizas on the icons on Golgotha, first time in 150 years. So who knows? This is why I decided, to start writing about that, and probably one day they will cooperate with me. I don't know. They cleaned all the frescoes. Yes.
All the reasons.
Only problem in my country, and once a year they remove the wreaths and clean the. So I decided to go out. Hopefully,
you must stay forward.
And I have questions. What's about the collection of miracles connected with this icon?
I don't know anything. You know everything?
No. They didn't record it.
But it is considered a miracle working icon.
Yes.
There is no book of miracles.
Okay. And the questions for our last presenter, Cyprian Firea. Cyprian, I'm sorry. Cyprian Firea. Does anyone have the question for Cyprian?
We're hungry.
We are not so hungry. Okay. And thank you everyone for very interesting panel session, morning session, and we will start at the second session at 1:30. 1:30. We start with the second session, afternoon session at 1:30. At 1:30. At 1:30.
Не, ние сега ще мислим още, що има.
Спокойно.